Hi, I'm Terrell, founder of QuickBlade paddles. Today we're going to talk about stroke breakdown and analyze a few different paddlers with different techniques, different size paddles, and talk a little bit about speed, and strategy, technique, different things that can help you go faster on the water. So let's talk about speed. Speed is simply a measurement of distance divided by time. There's two things that you need to have good speed, and that's a good stroke rate, and more importantly, good distance per stroke. The things that affect distance per stroke are your board length and design, your paddle blade size and design, your height and arm span, your strength, your technique, the wind, and the current. The things that affect stroke rate are your paddle blade size and design, your stroke length, your fitness, your endurance, your technique, and again, the wind and the current. In a race that's about an hour long, most of the top paddlers on an unlimited board or 14-foot board are paddling in the mid-40s to low 50 stroke rate. The distance per stroke that the better paddlers are paddling are between 11 and 12 feet per stroke. So there are two things that you can do to go faster. That's either pick up your stroke rate or increase your distance per stroke. Or better yet, a combination of both. So we filmed 4 different paddlers on a variety of boards. This is Rob Rojas on an unlimited board. The white lines represent the angle of the shaft every 3rd frame. So there's going to be 20 phantom lines per second. This is myself on a 14-foot board. You can see a plastic pipe in the water here that has 1-foot increments, so we can measure the distance per stroke so you can see the travel and the board speed. This is Brent Campbell on an 18-foot unlimited bark. Similar pattern to Rob's, being on an unlimited board, both experienced paddlers. The final paddler here is Tommy Holbrook on a 12-foot 6 board. You can see he has a little bit shorter technique, which can be compensated for with a higher stroke rate. We've got all 4 paddlers on the same screen here. Rob on the unlimited, myself on a 14, Brent on the unlimited, and Tommy on a 12-6. And I'm going to explain what you can do to compensate for distance per stroke and stroke rate. Right now we're going to break down each paddler individually. When the shaft is straight up and down is the most efficient point in the stroke and you have the most power. This is what I call the hot spot. If you count the number of white lines between strokes, you'll see 25 phantom lines, which means that Rob is paddling at roughly 48 strokes a minute if you do the math. From this line here to this line here, he's going 11 feet distance per stroke. One of the most important things you'll see, how Rob quickly enters his blade into the water. The downward motion is straight down, so he's getting a full blade in the water way up here. This is really good for distance per stroke. You can see he maintains that depth, and the bottom end of his shaft basically stays in one spot as the blade rotates in the water. A lot of people don't realize a good paddler will actually take the paddle blade out ahead of where they put it in. Let's back up here and you'll see right where the blade tip makes contact with the water. He's using his whole body to pull, and because you have forward momentum, the blade will come out ahead of where it goes in. Notice the path of his top hand, makes this nice little wave. Next up is going to be myself on a 14-footer. I set my blade, pretty deep catch. I'm using a 90 square inch blade, a little smaller so you can see some slippage. When you're in the middle of your recovery, your blade is actually traveling more than 3 times faster than the board. This is what you want to see, a nice positive angle. When the paddle's at this angle, I call that positive. When it's at this angle, I call that negative. And right here, I'm entering the water again, so I'm almost exactly 12 feet between strokes. You'll notice a nice positive paddle angle going in. That shows good reach. And notice the shape of this curve. You want a nice deep plunge. You don't want this to slip back. It's got to go down in the same spot. The 3rd paddler up here is Brent Campbell. Now Brent's on an 18-foot bark unlimited. Now let's measure the distance between Brent strokes here. Brent's actually traveling almost 13 feet per stroke. He's tall, got good rotation. The hand that's holding the paddle, I call this your bottom shoulder or the pulling shoulder. The hand that's at the top, I call this your top shoulder or the back shoulder. To get body rotation, you want to often think of taking the top shoulder back more so than reaching forward with the bottom shoulder. Now watch how quickly he gets his blade in the water again. That's a very good blade entry. A little forward lean. He gets a nice deep catch. Now his blade's fully buried. It rotates so low in the water that when it comes out, it's coming out about 8 inches ahead of where it went in. Again, very positive angle, just beginning of stroke. He pulls pretty long in the water. If you pull too far back and get too much of a negative angle, it takes too long to get to your next stroke and you can actually decelerate in between strokes. And if you take too long to come out of the water, you're not working the sweet spot. Notice where the shaft is bending right here. This is when you want to apply the most power. The next paddler here is Tommy Holbrook. He's going to be on a stock board. You can see the distance between strokes is a little less. Some of that has to do with being on a shorter board. Doesn't glide quite as well. And he also has a little bit less of a positive angle and even less of a negative angle. So he's working at the most effective point of the stroke, which is okay. It's going to cause you to paddle a little bit higher stroke rate. It takes a little longer to set the blade. It's good that he doesn't pull back too far. You don't want to come back here because you're at a negative angle where you're not as effective. If you count the frames between strokes, you're going to see it's much fewer for Tommy, so he's actually paddling at a higher rate. We're really excited about this stroke analysis that we're doing. It gives us a lot of valuable feedback. Distance between strokes, stroke rate, paddle blade angles, all those different things that will really improve your performance.